Snog, marry, kill. Gordon Ramsay, Jamie Oliver, and that guy from Great British Bake Off.
Marry Jamie.
Maybe he'll convert. Were you serious about getting out of here? If you're in, you're in.
Welcome, Nadia Fall, to the Picture House podcast. It's fantastic that you are able to join us, as not only are you the director of the superb Sundance favourite Brides, but you are also the artistic director of the Young Vic Theatre. So when do you sleep?
I was just having this conversation. Sleep is a luxury. As John Bon Jovi said, I'll sleep when I die. I don't know whether he said that. I don't know where I got that from, but yeah.
I think he did. And also Kate Moss said sleep is failure.
Yeah, I mean, I would love a lie. And at the moment it's kind of nuts because I just took over the Young Vic Theatre as artistic director in January. I used to run another theatre before that in the East End of London. And so I started in January, and next week is the opening of my very first show and the opening of my season. And the next day is the opening of Brides. So it's like life is like buses. They all come at once, you know.
Be careful what you wish for, I guess.
I know, but I am living my best life. I'm very lucky.
It is. It's wonderful, and I love to see theatre and film coming together. I mean, basically, it's the best of storytelling. It's the best of community, isn't it? So, tell me about your two journeys before we get into the film. Like, how do these two worlds collide for you?
Well, yeah. So in real life, as I like to joke, I'm a theatre director, and I've been doing that for many, many years. I sort of cut my teeth at the National Theatre and in sort of studio theatres up and down the country as a young person, and and then ended up running a theatre for 8 years in the East End and now the Young Vic. So yeah, theatre is my first love, definitely, no doubt about it. I learn everything I know about storytelling and dramaturgical stuff, working on script, working with writers, both dead and alive, and then working with actors. And I think I do what I do because I love actors. I'm really drawn to them as people. And, you know, I guess a painter has paints and I have actors to tell my stories. And I really think they're wonderful and incredibly brave people. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more, and especially with this film, which we will come to them. But also, I mean, they're such different mediums. Like I suppose with the theatre, it's you, then the actors. But with film, you've got you, the camera, and then the actors. So how is that different for you? How do you work around that?
It was. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There were some things that I definitely bought from my life in the theatre. I mean, you know, rehearsal seems oddly to be a rare thing in film. And because theatre's the art of repetition, rehearsal is everything. But I managed, because we had a brilliant producer, Nikki Bentham from Neon Film. She sort of, you know, it's an indie film, you know, there's not much money about, but we just squirreled away a little bit to have some time with the lead actors, because one of whom, it was her very first ever acting experience, not even drama club at school. So we just needed that time to get to know each other. And, you know, the first day on a set is overwhelming for a first time director. I mean, first time as in it's my first feature, and a first time actor. So we really, those days were precious. But I think it is different. Film takes a long time to get over the line, and it's a sort of thing about stamina in a very different way. And it's kind of a bit like camping. There's a million people on a shoot and it's noisy. There's a lot of weather, torrential rain. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's 100, you know, supporting artists when you're doing a scene in an airport, for example. And somehow, amongst all the chaos, you've got to really focus and, you know, have the story in mind. And you've got to be really awake to talking about sleep, to changing things, everything you might have prepped, you've got to be able to turn on a sixpence. So it is a different pace. But unlike theatre, which is the art of repetition, film, you just need one take that might work or a few takes that you could have a box of options. And I just learned so much every hour, every day, every week of the shoot. I wish I could go back in a time machine and do it again, because you just learn so much, and especially learn a lot in the edit. And with theatre and with film, it's not an academic pursuit. You can read books about it, you can watch loads of films, of course, and that's wonderful. But really, all of us artists only learn by doing. And, it's one of those very, very special things being an artist. I think, there's an obsession with youth in our culture, but actually, you get more experienced with age and practice, and I think that's good news, and so I just feel, I still feel like a baby director when it comes to film. I feel like a little toddler walking in and being very curious, and I think it's a really good quality to have anyway when you're in the arts, is always never think that you know it, because you don't. It's like a childlike quality.
I couldn't agree more. And I definitely felt that in the film. I felt a kind of audaciousness of youth, if you like, but certainly never to its detriment. And obviously, it's been lauded by Sundance. You were an absolute favourite there, and you had your world premiere there. Tell me a little bit about that before we dig into the film.
Wow, it was just like a pinch yourself kind of experience. I think if it weren't for incredible festivals like Sundance, indie film would never have the platform it deserves. And, we lost Robert Redford the other day, and, what an incredible advocate he was by setting up Sundance for independent film. And, why? Because, then you get original ideas, you get things that aren't big Hollywood studios. And all of us know, anyone who curates art or is passionate about art knows that the interesting comes from the fringe, from the experimental, and it's sort of a new life force for every generation. So it was just, magic being there. It was full on. I don't know why I thought it was going to be like a little holiday. It wasn't. It was like proper, you arrive sort of hungover with jet lag, but then you hit the ground and it's like up at 3 a.m, get ready for all these exciting interviews and podcasts and Q&As and screenings. But it's like an incredible festival, and you feel like you're in this little town that's so special. And I know it's changing to another town now, so I feel really lucky that I got to experience it in Salt Lake City in Utah, and its original home. Yeah,
Really special, really special. Well done.
Sisters, I am blessed to guide you on your journey. Our own families can't understand our choices. Western society has warped their views.
Can't go home. There's no way I'm going back, man.
Don't answer it.
Do you think they'll call the police?
Who's gonna give a shit about two brown girls?
Girls, is it your first time in Turkey?
Yeah.
It's not safe for you to travel like this on your own.
So tell me, let's go back to the origin of this now particularly timely film. The beginning, the inspiration, working with writer, is it Suhaila El-Bushra?
Suhaila, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Suhaila and I met at the National Theatre. We did a play together by a play called The Suicide. It was a comedy. It's a version of Nikolai Erdmann's sort of a Russian classic, and she transposed it to a modern day estate in Elephant and Castle. And it was a comedy, and we really got on well, and we had really spooky similarities about our lives and growing up, and we even have a son with the same name, so that was really weird. And and we just got on, and lots of screen people said, have you two ever thought about making a film, because your sort of play is very cinematic? And we went, oh, we'd love to. But also at the same time, all across the media and the news were the stories of the real life young people that made a very similar journey to the protagonists in our film, to Syria, and namely Shamima Begum and her friends, though there were many other young people across this country and Europe that made that journey. And we just noticed how the young people were being portrayed as kind of monsters and evil, and nobody was really telling any stories from their point of view. And we just thought that was odd and needed to be sort of interrogated. But at the same time, we were both really worried and nervous about approaching the story ourselves because of our heritage. We're both of a Muslim heritage, and our sort of family background. We didn't want to add to a kind of tirade of stereotypes about Muslim people or young people even. And but I keep saying, as an artist, you've got to do the thing that scares you the most. You've got to kill the policeman in your head, because if it scares you, it's probably saying some kind of truth, something that's very close to your own lived experience. And so we began very quickly to have this idea of two young girls running away. And Sahela did loads of copious research around the real life incidents, but ours is definitely a fictionalized story. But all the social media in the film, the graffiti on a wall, even the bus station where we filmed the young girls waiting, trying to get a bus to the border, or where like the real life young people were. And yeah, and I think there's loads of brilliant podcasts and documentaries about, and more information coming out about the young people in real life. But ours is really, I think what cinema can do more than any other medium is really get under the skin and see the world from out of the eyes of the other person. And it's an empathy machine. And boy, oh boy, do we need that right now, to put ourselves in other people's shoes, because people in power, people who've got the mic at the moment, their agenda seems to say, look, you're so different from that person. Look at these terrible people from this community or that. And we all know that's just not true. We all know that we've all had our heart broken, or have a parent that irritates us, or a child that's not, like we've all had similar life experiences, and we bleed the same. And cinema and theatre brings us back into a room together, to a shared experience where we realise we've got more in common than we have apart. And that's a really important thing to remind ourselves right now.
Oh, I just could not agree more. And I just hope and pray that so many people go and see this film. And, not just because of the actual subject matter, but, like with films like Scrapper and Four Lions, and that they do present a story that is absolutely relatable to people that you may feel are not relatable to you. And I love that you chose the centerpiece of the film to be absolutely and completely unexpectedly their friendship.
Yeah, I think
So,
for me,
yeah.
above all, it's a story about friendship. Any of us have been teenagers, or are teenagers, know what a potent electric time of life it is. Everything feels big. Emotions are real, and they're huge. And I think, our friendships at that age, the platonic love you have for your best friend, you die for your best friend, or someone you fancy, or whatever. And it's really potent. And I'm also, both Sahela and I worked a lot with young people. I used to work in pupil referral units in secondary schools, in mental health settings, and youth offending. And I'm fascinated by the teenage brain, because all of us, when we're adolescents and teenagers, we have a hardwiring in our brain to make impulsive decisions. Sometimes erratic, and it's all kind of part of evolution. It's our way of flying the nest and breaking away from our parents and authority and teachers. And we all have it. We all rebel to some extent. And usually we have people around us that love us, and a society that holds us, and we get through it and we laugh about it. But some people don't have that luxury of being held or being understood. But yeah, I think friendship is a huge part of this film. It's the love story. And we all know, when we get a bit older, that some of the strongest love stories in our life aren't romantic love.
Absolutely, it is that friendship that you had. And, we all probably can relate to the fact that we made catastrophic decisions
Oh
around
yeah.
friendships, and, lied and cheated and stole in ways that behaved in ways that would never have occurred to us that unless that was in that instant. So that's what I found was so relatable and so interesting and true all the way through the film, was these unexpected twists and turns that were founded in reality completely. I really want to commend you on that.
Thank you. I'm glad that you felt that. And, we were also nervous of what young people would think, especially young women and especially Muslim young women. And we had a really brilliant time in the casting process, in that we worked with a brilliant casting director, Shaheen Baig, who's award winning for Adolescence and other brilliant films like Scrapper, actually, that you mentioned. And she is a master craftswoman, as she really understands how to do what's known as street casting, not necessarily traditional actors, people from working class backgrounds or global majority actors and so on and so forth. She really knows how to find that talent and really support that talent. And so we did an open casting call on social media. We had like 600 young women apply. We met hundreds of people. I'm really a big fan of a proper audition process, meeting people not just on a Zoom like we are now, but in real life. And we had workshop auditions, and we spent a lot of time not just auditioning the young women, but them auditioning us, having the conversation. How did they feel about the script? Did it feel true and authentic and nuanced? And did they relate to it? Did it make them angry? And we just felt, Sahela and I was so nervous, but we felt completely disarmed and validated when we worked with the young women. And from our conversations, we even added things back into the script. And we just learned as much from them as they did from us, really.
How
So
wonderful.
that was a really important part of the process. And this is the thing, as artists, process is key, time is key. But when you're, running a theatre, a subsidized theatre, or making an indie film, time is money. So to carve out time to do things with depth and rigor is all you ever want, but it's always the thing that you sometimes have to give up because there's no budget for it. But we really did. I'm really glad we stuck to our guns on that kind of stuff, because it paid dividends, I think, when you say, yes, you really felt adolescence bottled in the film. And I think the young women that come up to us, especially after screenings and so on, they're like, they go up to Ibadah and Saf, and I can see they feel seen. And to me, I'll take that. I'll take that any day of the week.
What have you done with my daughter, please? Mom? Don't, baby.
There's a road in front of you.
No!
But it breaks into two. You must choose one path.
And tell me about your two leads, the chemistry. And the casting is superb. They both inhabit their characters. So
Ibadah Hassan, who plays Doe, as I say, it is kind of from my, part of town. We're both South Londoners. We really relate to that and each other. And she had never been to drama school. She'd never done drama at school, and just had an innate truth and authenticity about her. And we spent time together. We did some rehearsal and improvisation. I love improvisation to sort of imagine the world. And it was just such a great relationship, and the chemistry. So the thing with Safia, and I feel a bit awkward about saying this, we actually had another young woman playing the part of Muna. And for various circumstances, she couldn't do the piece. So, a few weeks before our shooting, we'd lost one of our leads. And I remember seeing Saf in a small play, and she was just extraordinary. And she came in, and their chemistry was palpable straight away. They sort of were like yin and yang, and I made them do an improv, and they just hit it off. And that kind of chemistry you can't really fake. And because Saf is also very young and definitely at the beginning of her journey as an actor, she'd done a little bit more. She'd done an indie film before, Layla, and she'd, done a bit of theatre. So she was able to, in a very sisterly way, hold Abada's hand through the experience, which can be grueling. We've shot in 3 different countries, in a lot of weather, and we were in Wales, we were in Turkey, we were in Italy, and each time we sort of hit our stride and made friends, we had to pack up and leave to a different culture where people had literally a different language. That was a lot for 2 young women holding the film. So the fact that they had each other was brilliant, and the fact that they are genuinely friends now is just everything. Yeah, no, that was just luck as well. Great casting, but also great that they were actually friends.
Yes, and luck favours the prepared, as they say.
I hope so.
Yeah, and tell me then about, so you've got this fantastic central relationship, and then we're all expecting this ISIS story, and of course what we get is a fabulous buddy road film, and I love that all our expectations are subverted all along the way. You don't shy away at all from all the reasons why these young girls are doing what they're doing, and you don't shy away at all from what happens to them, which isn't a spoiler in any way, shape, or form, but it is just so interesting how you've chosen to tell this story. I wonder if you could expand on that.
Yeah, thank you. I basically, there's so many documentaries, news footage, all of us have seared on our retina the horrors of war around the globe. And we remember this, Aleppo and the before and after pictures. We've seen the images on news and documentary. We know the horrors that the young people going there, met, whatever political side you want to take. They were children, and they found themselves in situations which they couldn't have imagined. But I couldn't replicate a war zone, and I didn't want to. I think there's loads of stuff that sort of tackles the other side of that border, and ours was about them and their point of view. And we all know about the violence, the coercion, the sexual abuse, that all the complicated stuff that was happening on the other side. We're only just actually learning some of the detail of what happened to the real life people and how much the secret services knew about them and so on. So things are still coming up about that. And maybe someone will make a feature film about the other side. I know there have been other things, but yeah, it was really important for us to really focus on them and focus on the push and the pull. And, when Sohaila did her research, there was no one size fits all about why people made that journey. Some people experienced acute racism. 2 boys that left, there's no spoiler, but some graffiti in the film that is real from 2 lads that left from around Brighton. And home lives and then sort of rhetoric on the dark web, and you could say radicalization and all of that. There's lots of pull and there's lots of push, and we've tried to look at that. But to say that our film gives all the answers of why someone goes or why someone's radicalized, or it would be just insincere and absolutely ridiculous, because we can't do that. It's a nuanced thing. And so I just hope our film asks the right questions, and gets us all talking rather than trying to proffer an answer about everything.
And also just begs the connection, just stop seeing things as other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, for me, it's like, will people recognize that could be your niece, your daughter, your neighbor, your student? All the children are our children. Children should be brought up by their parents or guardians, but also by society. If you see a vulnerable child on the street, if you see someone on distress on a bus, is normal to have empathy for someone, and even if you're not related to them or you don't know them. And that's what I think is being eroded when people say other. That is other, that isn't you, that isn't another human being like you. And then it's easy to stop having empathy. And I think that is where danger occurs, the lack of empathy and also lack of discourse. Because if we all ignore each other across party lines and just go, I'm not even going to talk to someone who found it necessary to go on the Unite Britain March on Saturday or whatever, then we're in danger. If we're going to go stop talking and say, right, that's it. And I can understand when people are hurt and angry, you just think, oh, sod it, I'm not engaging. And it's very difficult. You know, you don't want to engage with utter hate. You can't, because it's ossified. But where there's a little glimmer of light is if people are up for talking.
100%. And also, one of the things that I definitely noticed with the Shamima Begum stories was they were very much told by men. And I love that this story is told by two women, like yourself and your crew as well.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
a very deliberately female-led team. Sahela, obviously our writer, Nikki Bentham, our lead producer, our Welsh producers, Kat and Alice, Marika, who is our Italian producer, all women. Our DOP, Clarissa, brilliant DOP, a woman, our editor, just so many people around that entire project. And that was just really deliberate, because when, the thing is, when you're on set and, you have global majority people or women or, a certain group that's being represented in front of the camera, and usually you look behind the camera and it's usually white men, and it just feels like, you're in a zoo or a freak show, even when, they're good people. It's not that. It's just, and I think you feel safer when you know that the people around you have been teenage girls and have a lived experience, and there isn't judgment or a kind of voyeurism. There is the shared understanding, a shared experience. Yeah, it was deliberate, and it just made a shorthand easier for all of us, and a level of trust, definitely.
I'm so sorry that we're going to have to wrap up now. I could talk to you all day. I've got so many more questions, but unfortunately time is up. But last question, why do we have to see this film in a cinema?
Because Clarissa has done some beautiful cinematography, and as a filmmaker, artistically, I want people to have the whole experience. But I genuinely think going to the cinema is good for your health. It's been proven that, there's a kind of isolation, loneliness epidemic out there. And to fight that, we've got to come together in communion. And going to the theatre, going to the cinema is a communal experience. You're in the dark with people you might not know, but you're sharing something together. Who knows, you might even have a conversation afterwards. But, it's not just me being a big hippie. It's been scientifically measured that our heartbeats intertwine with each other. And when, and there's the ancient Greeks made their citizens go to the theatre to experience things together. And so there is a tried and tested reason why. And I'd really like people to experience that community. Honestly, you'll feel better for it, I think.
It's not about what we left behind. It's about what's ahead.